Hey guys, welcome back to my channel. Today I have a very special guest. It's an interview with my girl Bella, otherwise known as the goddess next door. She is a professional dominatrix and she is also a somatic therapist. She's also super into mythology, Jungian psychology, and she is also autistic and ADHD. So we talk a lot about the intersection between sexuality and neurodivergence. We dive into mythology and archetypes. She's from Australia, so we also just dive into some of the cultural differences between the United States and Australia when it comes to sex work. This conversation is super juicy. I hope y'all enjoy it. And yes, the camera angles, if you are watching this on YouTube and it's not audio, the angles that we shot in were on purpose. There are reasons why Bella does not show her face publicly on camera, and we get to that reason about halfway through the interview. And before we get going on the interview, I just want to say if you are enjoying this content or you like content about the intersection between Jungian psychology, sexuality, kink, shadow work, all of that good stuff, make sure you follow, subscribe, like, do all of the things to make sure that you don't miss an episode. All right, I hope you enjoy this conversation. On with the interview. Bella, thank you so much for being on the podcast today.
Thanks so much for having me on. I'm excited to be here.
Yes. Would you like to introduce yourself to the audience?
Fabulous. I'd love to. So, I'm a professional dominatrix, conscious kink and somatic practitioner, and a healer. I'm also neurodivergent. I have ADHD, which is an absolute blessing combo of ADD and autism. So, lots of
Mm.
special interest around psychology, attachment, mythology, basically just trying to understand people.
Thank you so much for being here. I always ask people when they first come on, just like their journey into sex work. And we can start as early as you want or as late as you want in your life. But like, when did this come through that you're like, you know what, this is something I want to do?
Let's do a montage scene. Let's take it back to the 90s when I was born. um, we'll go back, maybe not that far. So it's funny. I don't think there was a lot of other, maybe 12-year-olds that wanted to be sex workers. But I remember back in the day being so excited to be like, you know what? Like one day maybe I could be a stripper because I looked up to the girls, thought they were like so glamorous, gorgeous, stunning. I loved the power that they seemed to wield with men in strip clubs. So I remember there being an interest from a really early age. I remember telling my mom, and she was like, "You're not going to do that. That's not happening." But yeah, definitely interest very early on. I also felt like when I was in my teens, early 20s, like I was quite attracted to the taboo. Anything that was a little bit risky or not particularly approved of by society. I'm like, that seems interesting and fun, and got really curious about that. I remember some of like my early experiences with partners when other people my age were probably not yet sleeping with partners. I was with a partner and we were trying some interesting things, getting a little bit kinky. And I think that it took off from there. That was a bit of a gateway drug to learning that there was more depth to sex than what society would talk about or like comfortable showing. So yeah, that was my early interest, I would say.
Yeah, thanks for sharing. I relate to that. I feel like I was the first person in my friend group that was like doing things. And I don't
Mm.
know, for me, I don't know if maybe it was like I was abused when I was younger. So I'm like, I don't know if it was because like from the sexual abuse that I had that I was just like way more desensitized to sex, or if I was always a sexual being. This is like a question I ask myself. Was it because I was charged up in some certain way or conditioned in a certain way, I should say, versus I was just always a little freak.
No, I can
Like
totally relate to that. We love a little freak. It makes us
little
exciting.
freak. Yeah.
No, I totally relate. And I've had similar thoughts around that as well. Is it because of like exposure to like whether it was like accidentally seeing porn, like a bit too early, or early childhood experiences? Does that give you a bit of a precursor for being a more sexual person later on? Or is it
I,
inherently part of your being?
how old are you, if you don't mind me asking?
32.
Okay, so we're close to the same age. Like we were very young when the internet became
Mm.
a thing, and I totally
Yeah.
remember watching the most depraved shit because it was the wild, wild west out there on the internet. And I remember seeing it was like the porn Olympics. People were doing weird stuff. People were right? Am I the only one that remembers this? Like people were doing crazy Two girls,
Was
one cup.
definitely a
I mean,
thing.
come on.
Oh my God, yeah.
There was all of this and it was like cultural. And I remember, oh my God, what site was it? Rotten.com. It had like dead bodies, but also had like lots of like really weird
Hmm.
like sex stuff. And yeah, I for sure think that early exposure to
Yeah,
non-realistic porn is like very probably not great for sexual development.
for sure. It frazzles your brain. And I think, yeah, depending on like the kind of stuff that you saw and then how things were brought up afterwards, does that have a really significant and negative impact, or can you learn to work through that? Like, I think a lot of the porn that we were exposed to was probably pretty detrimental. Like, none of it I felt was authentic or like loving or connecting. And so the way that I kind of learnt sex early on from porn was very much detached from any sort of authentic connection. It was really like performative and this goes here and this is what happens in this situation, or here's this really extreme thing. It's like, God, I didn't need to see that.
Yes, I'm so glad you're bringing that up because I've just been really thinking more about, or it's just been in my field a lot where people are talking about these like dopamine versus oxytocin sexual experiences, right? The dopamine is like you're straight driving towards something with the vibrator set at 1,000 or whatever, like you're going straight for something, or even with a partner, you're just like just going for the finish. And then that's like very much like a dopamine based pull. Whereas oxytocin, it's like taking things slow, like feeling the pleasure, like being in your body. And like, yes, like that kind of sex and intimacy, I don't think is very well promoted, right? In a lot of porn.
Not at all. Like, maybe a little bit more common now, especially with people being able to do their own kind of stuff, like through OnlyFans, and it not going through massive agencies or film studios that are really directing like what particular actions or like behavior is expected in the scenes. But yeah,
Yeah.
interesting also that you mentioned the whole like dopamine versus oxy thing, because I think also for anyone that's a bit neurodivergent, and so many of us have flavors, even if we're not the full blown Z, like we've got bits and pieces of it. I think that a lot of it can be dopamine chasing in the early days because like you don't have the experience of, especially when you're young, like when you're like 18 or whatever, start having sex with people, like you don't know what long-term love and commitment is yet, that you don't
Hmm.
have that feeling of safety and security and that slow release of oxy as a relationship builds with someone. It's usually like, you know, your first high school love or your first not so wonderful like sexual experiences that just happen because it's the time. But I would say like a lot of that stuff, particularly for me, was definitely dopamine based. I was very sexual from an early age with partners, and it was all like fairly good early days. But I definitely started to explore my sexuality in my early 20s with lots of different partners, like lots of different experiences. And this is the whole like dopamine chasing with ADD. I was like, oh, I want to have all of these different experiences. And what if we tried
Yes.
this? Or what if we incorporate someone else into it as well? And what would happen in this situation? And it was just trying to like play around to like one, find out like what was pleasurable for me, but also like I had this smorgasbord of things that I could choose from. I'm like, no, let's do it all at once. But
Mm.
I think like reflecting on a lot of experiences that I had back in the day, very different to now. Like at that point in my life, I was not connected to my body at all.
Mm.
I had pretty much spent like up until my early 20s, my whole life in just this survival state. And so a lot of it was just being like really disconnected from my body because it wasn't super safe to be in my body. Like with the upbringing that I had, like it didn't really have a safe
Mm.
and stable home, like early days. Had some great partners when I was like in my teen years, but then some not so great ones along the way. And so I think that probably also caused some sort of discomfort, like within myself and feeling comfortable with my body and sexuality. Also, like to bring in autism, and there's a lot of interoception issues that we have where we're not really feeling all of the feelings inside our body. Like with ADD, for example,
Mm.
someone that has that might not realize when they're hungry because they're not getting the information from their body that's saying, oh no, like you're starting to feel hungry, like you notice it as it's coming on, like it's going to progress. That's also a little bit disconnected. So I think I hit a
Mm.
point in reflection where I was like, okay, so there's some trauma stuff, there's also some neurodivergence. It's caused a bit of a disconnect from my body, like compared to the feelings that I feel now to what I used to feel. But I think a lot of that came through doing my own shadow work and working with a somatic therapist, which was like my entry point into getting involved in sex work and somatics.
Yes. No, I definitely relate with that too. I'm like, that was the biggest thing was the shutdown from my body, and also why I'm also interested in sex work and somatics, why we get along. Um, yeah, and when did you actually start your journey into doing pro dom work and OnlyFans modeling?
Pro dom work, I was an in-person dom for years, so probably 5 years ago that started. OnlyFans and like digital domination, which I'm
Mm.
doing at the moment, that has started within the last 4 months. So yeah, it's interesting to see the difference between in-person doming and something online. There's a lot of differences, some pros, some cons.
Yeah, I want to talk about that. Let's talk about the
Yeah,
differences.
for sure.
So I basically almost all of my dom work, in exception to like a few partners, like like people I was partnered up with. Um, Besides partners, I basically did everything virtually. Online domination, it's very much in the mind, it's
Mm.
psychological. I did a lot of humiliation work and things like that. But I always went back and forth about would I want to do this in person with people I don't really know that well. And my body was kind of like, nah, like didn't like that idea.
Yeah, it's interesting. Like I think similar to you, like that's probably the reason that I went digital because in person I was kind of limited in the clients that I could choose. Like I had a few really good clients and it was definitely people that I felt very safe and connected to. I was very
Hmm.
selective about who I chose. Now that it's online and there's not that physical element of like them actually being able to like touch me and have our energy in that same space, it's a little different. I can be a bit more flexible with clients and vet them out, but yeah, take more people on board. So I think part of it was quite emotionally draining, like being a very
Hmm.
empathic person and a healer. When I'm in a physical space with someone, like I am taking on their energy, I'm feeling all of that. And it can be like a beautiful experience with someone in person, like when you are sharing that space and energy, but it can also be so exhausting. Getting to the end
Hmm.
of a session, like whether it was 1 hour or a few hours, you just get to the end of it. And like some days I would just be so burnt out from it, so overwhelmed. I'd be like, cool, I can't do anything for the next 2 days. Like, I'm just going to have to like chill and let my nervous
Hmm.
system calm down because of potentially like some really like heightened scenes or someone's like shame that was coming up in a session. Like, we would be able to deal with that to a certain degree, but then there's also like the projection side of things, like when they start putting maybe a bit too much onto you.
Yeah, totally. I see such a parallel between like shamanism and someone who's doing pro domination because you are
Mm.
essentially bringing the demons like to the surface, right? And clearing them. It's like an energetic thing that's happening a lot of times in scenes. I'm not saying in every scene, but a lot of the times. So I've been thinking a lot about this too, of like energy protection, like how to keep your energetic boundaries strong around situations like this. But yeah, that's how I felt even doing the virtual stuff could be a little draining. And I think, yeah, I don't know. I'm at a place right now where I'm like, I don't think I would go back, but I'm not against it. That's another thing too, is that I'm working with people doing shadow work, and that I think would have to be two separate practices because you can't be like all up in someone's mind and then also perhaps doing like physical domination. I don't know. I guess maybe you can. This is where I'm stuck on the question of like, when is it too much
Mm.
where you're then like, you're in too many aspects of their like psyche and stuff? Like, we're that, I don't know.
I'm in your brain.
Yeah, yeah,
Yeah,
yeah. Like,
it's interesting. Yeah, I've had similar thoughts too. So like I completely get where you're coming from. Yeah, like sometimes the physical part, like it brings some of the subconscious to the surface, but also like sometimes like the stuff that I was doing, I'd either do really in-person physical scenes with people, or it would be some clients. So one client, for example, he had his like high school sweetheart pass away very early into their 20s. They'd only been with each other, they were so in love. She got quite sick and was gone in 2 months. And he was so traumatized from the experience that he couldn't be physically intimate with another person because it was just like too emotionally raw for him to expose himself to another human and be in that same space as them when he was still really healing from this
mm,
trauma that had happened with his ex-partner. So he was an interesting one. Like, he was an in-person client, but nothing was ever physical. It was more like talk therapy that we did. And for him, the physical aspects that he was really comfortable with was just like holding hands or like gently stroking the skin, but like nothing too intense or like full blown like dom scenes. It was just very like soft and gentle, and to see like where we could start bringing in like some feeling or like some physical connection. And a lot of that, yeah, talk, a little bit of touch. But I think that was quite interesting because, yeah, it brought a lot to the surface. But yeah, if you were also doing like that deep kind of like talk work with hardcore scenes, I think that could be quite a lot. So yeah, I don't know where the balance is for that, is what I'm saying.
Yeah,
So we're probably in the same boat with that
well,
one.
well, I really just sat with it too. And I realized, just like you were saying, like there was so much disassociation from the body. Now that I'm paying attention to my body, I notice my body's a lot more sensitive to other people's energy too. Like the more I pay attention to it, the more I realize how sensitive it is. And I think for a long time, I would just cover it up with drinking or just straight up ignoring or whatever. And now I think, yeah, I think it's a no for me on the in-person stuff moving forward, but it was something that, yeah, came up for me because I was like, I could see, who knows, never say never, but as of right now, I'm like, I don't see that being a thing for me. But anyways, this isn't about me. This is about you.
Hey, it's your podcast. Let me interview you. An empath goes into therapy and they're like, let's sit down. Hey, therapist, like, how was your day? What have you been up to lately? Oh, this is your session. Sit down. Stop.
Well, no, I'm like, it's on my mind. So it's just like, but so really you did a lot. It sounds like you did a lot of kind of like soft dom, mommy dom stuff.
Yeah, I'm really soft dom.
Yeah.
Girlfriend experience is what I get a lot of because I think that's how I very naturally come across to people, like quite soft, sweet, demure.
I
So
was gonna say you have
I get
you have a great bosom for nestling.
right,
Yeah.
very soft and supple.
For anyone that's listening that's not watching on YouTube, has her face out of the frame, so I'm talking directly to her bosom, and it's funny because I don't know where to put my eyes. Like I'm looking at the camera, and then I go to look down when you're talking, but it's just
There's no avoid it. Have a look
there's
at them.
no way. Yeah, I'm like, oh my gosh, sorry. No, it's great. I love it so much. Yeah, I think that there's a lot. What I was gonna say is, I think there's a lot of opportunity for healing in like the mommy dom and the soft dom kind of. And that was what I honestly really liked the most. I did a lot of the humiliating stuff, but I also did a lot of the nurturing stuff. Especially, I had a lot of my sissy girls, so like doing dress up, and it was like cute, and fun, and like mom's encouraging you and mommy loves you, and you're so pretty. I loved doing that too. A lot of people have mother wounds, and I do think that there can be something
Sure.
healing to be with like maternal energy in like this sexy way. It is healing.
Yeah, for sure. And I think that's probably how I got into doing dom work is in my personal life. So before I started doing in-person doming, a few people that I'd met along the way were men who had either like intense sexual trauma from either it could have been their moms, it could have been past girlfriends. There was a lot of like trauma related things going on there. For people that just had been cheated on or didn't feel safe around women. So I was having these experiences with these people where I would call it a corrective experience. Like a lot of the time, like I'm like a very gentle and nurturing and loving person, like, yeah, that mummy dom, soft dom kind of vibe. But these people would have had this past experience that, had kind of terrified them a little bit, and then have this new experience with me where they felt like it had changed in the sense that they were like able to control the outcome or get to a safer outcome and not be in this place of, oh God, women are scary, or I'm going to be hurt if I get close to a woman because of all the previous stuff that had been coming up. But yeah, I think it's definitely like my personality that brings that safety out with a lot of my clients. And yeah, I think a lot of my favorite ones at the moment. So you said you've done like a lot of like sissy girl work. I'm absolutely loving that at the moment. I've got a few sissy girls and I just find it so fun to do the dress ups. We'll do like shopping adventures, go get some like cute little outfits. We'll do poses together. I'm like, that stuff is so rewarding because not to say that all kink and all fetish comes from trauma, because there's people that just like things because they just like what they like. But a lot of my sissy girls that have told me like where it's come from or what's happened, there's been so much shame
Mm.
associated with the dressing up or with the desire to be a bit more femme when they're living in this society. It's like, no, you're a cis white male, you have to behave like blah, blah, blah. And they just have this desire to do something a little bit different.
Totally. And there's so much healing for men when they connect to their feminine, and this is just an embodied way of
Mm.
doing it. I've also had, though, and this isn't my personal, maybe just my magnet point, but I also got sissy girls that were trans questioning or did end up transitioning too. So I think being a safe space also for trans like exploration was part of the work that I did and that I really enjoyed doing too, is like giving people a space to be seen like fully and
Mm.
given love and acceptance fully. Sometimes people need that to know like what's the truth because it can be confusing. Because I also knew lots of sissies that were like, I have no desire, right, to transition into a woman. This is just part of my sexuality. I enjoy it. It's something that I find expressive. And there are multiple different reasons why people engage in a certain kink or fetish. And it might not, and like you said, or it could just be for whatever, because I like it, and that's totally a thing too. I will say though, I have noticed there is a pocket of men who want to be feminized that are actually like really awful misogynists that like it's the ones that
Oh, there's
want to
some
be
shadowy lists.
yes, when I was doing this work I could clock them real quick and I wouldn't work with them because they were the
Mm.
worst. They were the ones that would come and then be like, you're a fat whore. You're like, whoa.
Oh my God.
Like
That's not what I'm
a
here for,
shame,
hon. Like,
the
no.
shame response that people will have.
Yeah.
And I found it was very specifically with the men who wanted to be forced feminized and like called a slut or whatever, but like in this very humiliating way. It's a different, because like with sissy girls, they're like excited to do it and it's like fun. There's
Yeah.
this other version where it's like, no, like this is the most humiliating thing I can be as a woman, like
Yeah.
it,
Deep rooted misogyny.
it's yeah, that's like coming from trauma. That's what I would say is like it's a kink that's actually coming from trauma and it's coming out in this not chill way.
Yeah, of course. So you said like by the end you could clock them pretty quick and wouldn't work with them. Were there a few in the early days that you felt you had good sessions with or successful sessions, or was it always like a murky feeling by the end of, oh, this ain't quite right, the way that they're speaking to me or feeling about this?
Well, it's funny because there's a lot of submissives I feel like that are out there that are actually just misogynist. There is a subset of them, that they're not really in it because they're interested in like integrating their feminine or into like feminine spirituality or worship or devotion or things like this. It's truly something that's been fetishized for them because of the shadow of their own femininity in a way that comes that has like hate as part of it, right? It's like there's almost like a flavor of hate. And that's what I'll say. And this is another reason why I was like, I don't know if I want to do anything in person because you don't know. You know what I mean? I'm like,
Yeah, of
people
course.
people, especially people that are living or enacting their kinks and they have a lot of shame. This is how trans women get killed all the time, right? Or people will engage in some sexual act that they want to with a sex worker and then kill them. It's like there's this shame involved in whatever you're partaking in and it like attacks in a way. It's a flavor of
Mm.
person of people that really have an unintegrated shadow that has taken a defensive force or offensive force. If that makes sense.
Yeah, for sure. I definitely get where you're coming from with that. Yeah, I very fortunately haven't come across any of those yet. My sissy girls are like fun, bubbly, like we're having a great time kind of vibes,
Also, too,
fortunately.
here's the thing is I also do feel like you attract the kind of sub based on where you are in your own spiritual
Mm.
development journey. I truly believe that. So these examples that I'm giving was when I was very early in my femdom
Yeah.
journey and I hated men. I was a misandrist at the time. So it doesn't surprise me that I was attracting the misogynists out subs out there, but I do know they exist
Yeah,
because I was
interesting.
I was down there in the belly, like experiencing these people on the internet. But I do believe that it also had to do with my own shadow projection and energetic alignment at the time.
It's interesting you say that. I've been thinking a lot lately, like in terms of the clients that are coming to me, like you say that you attract that energy that you're putting out, or like the thing that you need to heal through. I'm getting a lot of clients, and I've noticed this pattern. Like, one, as neurodivergent clients seem to be coming to me because we can get along very easily. Our brains are just on the same wavelength.
Yeah.
A lot of neurodivergence. But the other thing that I've noticed, so I've got like a few sissy girls, but I think predominantly the men that are coming to me are like quite intellectual and like very not in touch with their body, or like just getting into experiencing the body, which is the journey that I went through and I'm coming out of the tail end of. And I'm still like a very intellectual person. Like, I in my youth would intellectualize all of my feelings, and being disconnected from my body, I just wouldn't allow my body to feel anything. And I'd always try and like logic my way out of it, or like studying psychology and being interested in that. I'm like, oh, but there's got to be a reason. And these certain set of criteria or factors would all determine this particular outcome or behavioral thing. And it's just sit in the feeling and feel it. But that was so scary for me to just sit in my body and like actually feel what was going on. So intellectualized for years, and still dive into it sometimes if I'm in a particularly defensive mindset, let's say. But yeah, I do get a lot of clients coming to me that are quite in their head. And so I feel like it's a really good opportunity for me, because it's like, hey, I get you. Like, I've been through that. I understand your journey. Let me help you.
I love that. Yeah, tell me about a typical, or I shouldn't say typical, maybe tell me about your ideal type of client, the types of people you really like working with, how the relationship could go. And I'm asking more for other people that are listening that are going, does it make sense for me to connect with somebody like Bella, or with somebody, an online sex worker, to connect with either for like a girlfriend experience or soft dom experience? What, I guess I'm like, what's my question here? Like, the question is basically, what would be your ideal client, and how do these relationships go in your cam model business or in your OnlyFans business?
So there's probably, yeah, not like one particular standard, or not even one that I would be like, this is my dream client, because I like the variety of a few different things. Like the sissy girls at the moment, I'm really enjoying, because that's got this really fun, playful energy. Also with a few of them, like I know that it's coming from like a bit of a shame-based background for that. So the thing that I really enjoy about those experiences, it's like, I want you to feel seen and validated and safe in a space where you can actually express your full self. And like, maybe you can't do that in the real world to your friends and family because they've got expectations of you, or you feel like it's too shameful to show these parts of you. I want them to feel safe enough to be able to come forward and show that to me, and just be able to sit in a space with someone that is, no, you're fine. There's nothing wrong with you. Like, you expressing yourself in the way that you're doing is beautiful, and you just got to do that. It's authentic. So I think that's what I'm really enjoying with that at the moment. But it's like, a lot of it is different people. I don't want to say working with shame, because there's so much like fun and other things that can be done. But a lot of the work that I get is people, yeah, that maybe are just feeling like unloved, disconnected. So I really enjoy being able to work with them and get them connected to their body, and start to have these experiences where like they actually feel like they're able to show more of their authentic self, which is funny because it's online and obviously all anonymous. Like, you don't see my face. Yeah, none of my clients have seen my face yet. A few of them have sent things to me, so I know what they look like. But I think there's also safety in the anonymity of the whole thing.
Yeah, I probably should have started off the episode asking you this, but why are you face off for the interview today?
Because I'm an international woman of mystery. So I decided to go face out when I started. One, because my face is like technically sponsored by a very safe for work company in Australia at the moment. So I'm like, if they saw my face out there, or like somehow my not safe for work content got out, that would be very bad. So currently, like, I have a 9 to 5. My online Dom work is my second job, but I'm also an artist. So I've got a few different things that are going on. So that's one of the reasons. Also, with my interest in like Jungian psychology, like I'm interested in studying that a bit further, or going into medicine. And in Australia, there's certain limitations around careers that you can get into, especially like medicine and government positions, if you've ever been a sex worker, which is very unfortunate. So it's, if my face is out there and they see that, that's like an instant cross against my name. Can't be done.
Interesting. I didn't know. Well,
Yeah.
I would have thought because it's legal in Australia, that would mean that it's legal, that there shouldn't be repercussions.
So you'd think, because that would be the normal way to think about this. No, there's, yeah, particular limitations with certain fields. I think it can be quite niche, but some things that I am interested in, I have spoken to other girls that from the industry that also do these like medical professions, and they've been like, nah, you have to go full face out because if that ever gets found, you wouldn't be able to do what you're doing. Which, yeah, it's funny because in Australia, sex work is legal. So we've got legal brothels, like almost on every corner. You've got like the big clubs, but then you've also got like a lot of massage parlors, but
Mhm.
it's got flashing neon signs. Like everyone knows what's going on in there. But yeah, it is legal, but it's still very highly stigmatized.
What about male prostitution? I'm always interested in like what's going on legal male prostitution and everywhere
It
that I
is
talk about.
thriving over here.
Is
So,
it? Is it thriving?
yeah. Um, I heard from a friend. No, so like, funnily enough, I was going to go see a male escort years ago. Part of like my whole like spiritual journey and journey into somatics and healing, there was obviously some traumas that I had through like my early 20s with men and a lot of betrayals or cheating. And it led me to this point where I did not feel safe with men at all. Like I did not want them touching me. I didn't want them near me. Still, very unfortunately, I was attracted to them. So that was difficult. But I remember getting to this point of, I think it had been like a year or two, and I had just been like, no, like walls up, defensive, no one's getting near me. That I was like, no, I'm a human and I want to feel that experience. And I thought about going to a male escort just because there is so many like pre-negotiated rules and boundaries around the whole situation that they're a professional. Like it's not really about their pleasure. Like that might be part of it,
Hmm.
sure. But like they are there to make sure that I am safe and having a
Hmm.
good time, which is probably also why I like kink so much because of all of the negotiation that goes into scenes, the aftercare that comes with it as well. Like you have a fair understanding of what is actually going to happen. There's no nasty surprises. If something does happen, if like you've got safety words, like you can just kind of be like, oh, hang on, pause scene for a sec. Let's just quickly check in. I've noticed this particular behavior, or I've noticed I'm feeling this way. Can we just take like a sec to kind of recalibrate?
Yeah, you're so right. I also can see why BDSM or working with an escort, yeah, there's like clear communication there and it's very safe. Whereas I've been thinking about this also a lot. I just took someone's course on like sexual fawning. I don't know why, but except for to remind me of like how many times in my life I had been a sexual fawn, I think that I was like, oh
Mm.
my God, there were so many times I look back where I'm like, you just went with that. Like you just went with that. Even though you weren't really like down with it, you just went with it. I also find a lot of healing in being in the more conscious communication around sex and what we're going to be doing and like did you like that? And I don't know. It's one of those things that it sounds so simple, but we've been mostly
Until
raised just
you,
be like fumbling around in there and like hoping for the best and it's like
sure.
ugh.
Yeah, for sure. And it's like when you think about it, like where is your earliest sex education coming from? It's coming from the distorted porn that we talked about on like Rotten. Like that's yeah, it just gives you this really distorted view. And even around, I was talking to a friend the other day about this. Even around like communication in sex, like only recently have I found any porn where it's just like very normal and like they're talking to each other about like, oh, should we like use this or that's not feeling good at the moment? Let's re like jig things and try it from this way. But
Hmm.
like all the porn that I saw when I was younger, there was a very distinct lack of communication within scenes. It was just a lot of noises and whatever. But yeah, there was not really that communication, which is just not real or not natural. Like when you are with someone, like probably constantly talking throughout it.
Yeah, it's funny that you're saying that because I just interviewed someone, I want to say it was last week or the week before. Her name's Electra Rain, but she has this porn company called Queer Crush. And that's what she does basically is that she just lets the camera roll and like covers everything from like the conversation before to like people switching things up or like grabbing water or whatever. Nothing's cut. It's just like super authentic. I love what she's doing because yeah, there's not enough of that and
Yeah,
it
of
is so
course, that sounds
distorted.
juicy.
Yeah. Also, I want to go back to the male prostitution. I would totally hire a professional male sex worker. Just give me a chance, honestly.
Yeah.
Give me the right opportunity, I will absolutely do that. Probably just to say that I did it, just because I haven't, you
An
know, it's like
experience.
it's on my bucket list for sure. Has to be the right situation and the right vibe, but
Mm.
like I could totally do that.
I love that for you. Is it legal in the US? Like, do you have escort services you can use, or is it all very underground?
No, we have so the state there's one state, the state of Nevada, that allows for legal brothels, and they have to be in like unincorporated towns basically, so they can't be around anything like close. Like they're I think the closest one outside of Las Vegas is maybe like an hour and a half away type of thing. But it's mostly women that are working in the brothels there, not much representation for men. I think that there was one brothel that used to maybe have men and then they like failed or something.
That makes sense.
I don't think that there's probably a big enough market out there for American women. I don't know if American women
Yeah.
would really be into that. I don't know,
Do you think
maybe
like being more
if you're,
conservative?
huh?
Do you think that's just being like a bit more conservative?
I just think that we have a very distorted view of feminine sexuality here, everywhere, of course.
Mm.
But I feel like here there's this over sexualization of women in like media and in our marketing and like all of this stuff. But yet there's still so much repression and slut shaming and just sex shaming in general that I'm like, I don't know. I just don't know if like a woman, there's enough women in the United States that'd be like, yeah, I'm sexually free enough to like fuck a male escort. I don't know. I don't think so.
That's funny.
I don't,
Popping
I
off
just
in
don't.
Australia, like we've got we've got a couple of like well-known male escorts, but there's different agencies, a lot of guys that are doing like freelancing online that you'll see pop up on Instagram. But yeah, it's pretty out there. And like I'm not sure if the clients that they're getting are older women or younger, or if it's just a full array. But yeah, definitely wouldn't be looked down upon here, I think. Even though there still is a lot of slut shaming, especially with sex work here. And like we were saying before, so sex work is legal, but in strip clubs, like I've had a couple of friends that were grabbed at work by clients, like while they were dancing. And when they go to the police, like, what did you expect? You're a stripper. You were up there and you didn't have underwear on. What did you expect would happen? And they're like, sorry, like any other workplace, and it's a legal workplace, any other workplace in Australia, if that happened, you'd be getting like work cover insurance. You'd be able to make claims against it. The police would be helping you. There would be investigations. But yeah, with sex work, it's still so highly stigmatized that they just don't really help out in that way.
Why did they legalize it if it's so heavily stigmatized still?
Such a great question. um, I don't know. Like, this is such a bad answer. I was like, in my head, I'm like, it all comes back to the fact that we're just built on an island full of convicts. And so we've got some very distorted and different views about what's normal. Because they had like, so on the ships that came over and when they were colonizing Australia, so they, wait, can I swear on here?
Yeah,
What?
totally.
Yeah, cool. So they would call the women on the boats that were coming and like convicts, whatever, they would just refer to them as cunts. They didn't have any names. Like all of the girls were just things that could be sexualized and objectified. And I feel like so much of that has continued throughout our culture. So those were the convicts and the people that got here. But as society has progressed, that certain view hasn't really changed. Experiencing the misogyny in Australia and the views of women, sex workers, it's so different to going to somewhere like Europe. And I didn't actually realize what it felt like around here until I was actually out of it and had a different experience. I was like, oh, hang on, in Italy, like you actually really respect your women. I think there's women in high positions of power, or like you love your mothers and you're very gentle with them. It's not like this abusive, aggressive, like domestic violence situation all the time, which I think is fairly prevalent here.
Interesting. I didn't understand that Australia was just filled with wife beating criminals.
Yeah. They watch monster truck drive and drink cans of beer.
I'm like, and the huge spiders, like, I'm out. I'm good. I'm just kidding.
Oh my God, the spiders are real. It's so funny. So I had one compared to boob size. It was about this big. So that's like half the size of my face in my house the other day, just crawling across the roof. And these ones, they're called huntsmen. They're harmless, but they look terrifying. They kind of look like tarantulas, and they'll just be getting about, just hanging out in your house. But there's also the very poisonous ones as well. Found one in my bed the other week, a little white sail spider. They're everywhere. Yeah, come to Australia. Every single animal will kill you.
You like casually drop that you found a poisonous spider in your bed last week. Like
I sent
that's
it.
just totally just like the vibe. You're like, oh God, these poisonous spiders, like they keep invading my
Oh, don't you
bed.
hate it?
Don't you hate it when that happens?
It
Like,
was
oh
really
my
funny.
God.
It's just like so used to it and desensitized by now. I was actually filming a custom for a client when it happened. And I was in bed with like croissant and like a little cup of coffee, and we're doing like a hello, good morning kind of thing. And this spider crawls out of the sheets, and I flip out and go from being my very like dumb, seductive, like video voice to going, oh, fucking shit. Like, what the hell is that? Like, the most Aussie noises came out of my mouth. I like jumped out of bed. But then I started filming the spider and ended up sending that video to the client anyway because I thought it was funny. He loved it. Yeah, it's like I like that. A lot of my clients, like we have a good relationship, and I think that's the whole like GFE thing as well. Like we have a good connection where like I can show them the real parts of my personality and like things that are actually happening in my world, and it's well
Mm.
received. They're not just like, oh, you snapped out of character and I don't like that. You're meant to be this thing that I imagined you would be.
That's the key is like the having the good clients that are chill that you can actually have a real connection with, because that was what kept me going. I know when I was doing sex work was the clients that I did build a relationship with that I could be myself around as well. You know what I mean? Of course, I had my persona and I had my Dami mommy persona and I did the things, but at the end of the day, like I could still show myself to my recurring or long-standing clients. And yeah, there were some beautiful connections that were made, but I think also too, maybe again, I'm going back to a time where maybe my consciousness wasn't very high, but I also did have a couple, I don't want to say stalkers, but like guys, I had a couple clients that shifted and wanted to make it more than it was, which was just like our paid relationship, you know, you could tell
Mm-hmm.
they caught feelings, and I get why, right? Because you are sharing, you're being seen in so many different ways by this person, and there's like this intimacy that's being shared. So there's this like bonding that happens, you know, like I totally get that,
Mm.
but that's where I think, you know, I think I had a hard time being able to, I don't know. Like, I don't know. You see this like episode turning to me being like, what was that? Should I, why was that a problem?
Let's dig into your past now,
Let's like,
Jacqueline.
why was that a problem? I think also too at the time I didn't have super strong boundaries. So I think like people would creep too much into my space and I wouldn't put the boundaries. So then people would be like, oh, she must like love me back or something.
Yeah,
So
of
like
course.
definitely had a couple that, and I would say that they were teacher clients though. I didn't have the boundaries strong enough. And now they think that this is like something more than it is. And now I have to shut it down. And it's just easier to walk into some of these relationships with the boundaries really clearly established so that you don't have to put them up somewhere else later. And I say that that was
Mm.
probably for me, now that I'm saying it, now as I'm talking through, maybe you'll agree with me. I feel like doing femdom work really helped me understand boundaries and how to establish
Oh
them and
Lord,
how to
yes,
say
for
no,
sure.
because you get so much of people trying to get into your aura
Totally.
or into your field, right? So it like really taught me a lot.
Yeah, definitely teaches boundaries. Like I know early days I had a few experiences where it never got to the point where it was like pushed so far that I was like, that was horrendous. But there was times where I didn't know the particular boundary I needed to have with that client. And it's they would push and push and like you say, try to get into your aura, try to get a little bit more than what was initially on offer. But yeah, I think they were real teaching experiences. Okay, the next time that behavior starts to come up with someone else, identify it really early and put a boundary in, or have certain boundaries like prior to going into a scene that like things that I didn't even think at the time were going to be issues, but then would pop up later. Yeah. And like fortunately I wouldn't even say that majority of my clients have been fine, and why they maybe will try and test to see what you're willing to show or offer. A lot of them, like once you backpedal a little bit, like they're fine and respect that. I've only ever had, I think, maybe two clients that pushed a little bit too far, and after the session I was like, sorry, the connection's not working, like this doesn't work for us. But they were, yeah, quite intense. Like one of them, he didn't he came to me as, so whilst I was doing online work, this was not an in-person one, came to me while I was doing online. he had never been in a DS dynamic, which is fine. Like, great, come to a pro dom because then you can experience it if you want to try something new. But he didn't really have a solid understanding of like boundaries or expectations for anything. So I'm like, cool, I'll explain a little bit how that this works. And then we got into the scene, and there was a pre-negotiated scene that we were going to do. But halfway through, he starts, I don't even want to say like topping from the bottom or bratting, because he wasn't a sub. He had no desire to sub. He just wanted porn and liked the way that I looked and didn't care that I was a dom, but just wanted to engage in this thing. Started getting really like directive. Oh, sit this way, or move your leg here, or like show me this, or like blah, blah, blah. And like very vulgar. And I was like, oh, sorry, like that's not what I do. That's not what this scene is. That's not what is going to happen. He's like, oh, but like, unless you do that, it's just not going to be good for me. And like, am I getting my money's worth? And then it's like the guilt trip starts to come in. Right. And like at the time I was like, oh, like I don't like, I felt it. So I was like, well, this is not feeling good for me. I'm feeling the boundaries getting pushed. But yeah, little things, that's not little. Things like that happen that like instantly in my body now, I'm like, oh no, that does not feel right. Shut this down, or this needs to be not a thing that keeps happening. Whereas I think had I have gotten into sex work a lot younger, like I danced at some strip clubs when I was about 18, but it was never like a long-term thing. But if I got into the industry then, having not done all of the work, like the shadow work and like self-work and somatics work that I've done now, I think it could have been a much more dangerous situation to be in, like not knowing any of my own boundaries or how to express that, or even getting those like gut feelings or sensate body data that's like, no, this is not good, shut it down.
Yeah, totally. The somatic piece has been my longest, hardest, but most rewarding unfolding for sure. The listening to your body. And I think that this theme keeps coming up with other sex workers I'm talking to, and even the ones I've interviewed on the podcast. It's this idea of presence, and really leveraging sex work or BDSM for your own presence and for your own mindfulness and a somatic experiencing and being in your body and getting rid of shame.
For sure. I think it's an interesting place to experience like some different somatic things. So for example, like in my own life and my own therapy, a theme that had been coming up with me is this real like Aphrodite, like goddess of love, lover goddess kind of energy. And I think like you can read it in my body now. Like I very much embody that and embody that archetype. And while that had been unconscious in the past, like I was acting out like in my life, like I was going for unavailable men that were either married or had partners. And I was like, no, but they'll eventually leave their partner and choose me. And it's like, you look at Aphrodite women throughout history. So you've got like Marilyn Monroe or even Amy Winehouse. Like these women don't have particularly successful relationships because they're always going for unavailability. There's always this element of like danger and attraction and excitement. And so I'd really been playing that out in a very unconscious way in my own life. And I think now getting into sex work and doing it with intentionality, it's like I can be that like sexy lover goddess, like I can be fully embodied and I can like deeply make you feel things, but it's like I can do that in the container of that scene with a client and not be running amok in my personal life, because it's like that energy needs to come out somewhere, and it's like do it in a conscious way. So it's like sessions that I might have with people, I could be embodying my Aphrodite and I might be trying to like engage with them in a particular way to make them feel desired and loved, because they've said that's like the biggest kink at the moment. Like they may not feel accepted in their own life. So they want to be told like, I love you and like, you're so special to me, and the whole like, yeah, soft dom, mummy dom kind of thing. But yeah, it's just interesting to like play around with different energies in a conscious way to see what you can evoke from another person as well.
Yes, I've been thinking a lot about this on just like activating archetypal energies. You can even think about it as like a form of mediumship, but like that you're fully pulling in this energy, like you're saying, like Aphrodite, bringing in, and I even think just in everyday life, learning how to work with archetypes and bringing them into your existence and expressing them can show you so much about yourself and teach you so much about yourself and give you perspective on things in a different way. You're pulling in the energy of an archetype and you're asking it to co-create with you.
For sure. It's such an interesting take on it as well. I think also researching archetypes as well, I think that it's so interesting that like we've got these archetypes within our own psyche, and until you can identify them or label them and be like, oh, actually that behavior is like very Lilith-esque. If you're doing maybe like more humiliation or being like the big boss, like in charge and being like very strong and dominant, and like knowing like your sexual power and your sexual worth, like until you identify that as that particular archetype, like I know for myself, like all of these different things were just kind of murky in my head. I'm like, oh, I've got these behaviors, whatever. But those archetypes are all sitting in there. And this is going back to the whole like, is this from birth? Are you born with these different archetypes that need to be like lived and worked through and expressed, or are they from different experiences?
Oh, this is such a good topic. Like, okay, yes, okay, this is such an interesting topic because I was thinking about this also. Actually, I was talking to someone the other day about this, that certain people do have, I think, more direct access to certain archetypes or to, and I think it's because it has to do with the evolution of consciousness. It's going somewhere. We are vessels moving energy through this consciousness soup, right? And updating it and changing it in the way that it's supposed to. So I do think that some people are primed or maybe spiritually primed to work with specifically certain energies in their life path, certain archetypes.
For sure. Yeah, for sure. It's interesting. And so funny, I don't know if I've told you this before, but like when I started my own healing journey, I had a massive like dark night of the soul, big existential crisis. Like my world just came crashing down around me, and it was trying to navigate the way out of that. But yeah, a solid 2 years of high intensity emotional stuff and kind of disconnecting from society to work out who am I and what's going on with me. But at that time, so I'd started somatic therapy. I also started getting into art. Like I'm an artist and I do that as part of my work now. But at the time, like I had this skill that I was so disconnected from, and I was just like, oh, it's too hard or it's too much effort. I'm not going to do that. And so I had this dark night of the soul. It was in the COVID lockdown in Australia. So we more or less couldn't leave our house for 6 months at a time in different blocks. Like it was really intense with the rules here. So then I had all this time at home, right? I'm like, okay, cool. I'll pick up a new hobby, had like instruments, was like, I'll start painting. That could be fun. At the time, I didn't know anything about goddesses or about archetypes. Like I hadn't really started delving into that yet. But I made these two paintings. One of them, it's all like gorgeous, like pretty pink. It's this nude femme, like on the side body. I called her Venus, which is the Roman name for Aphrodite, which is the Greeks. But I called her Venus. And I was like, oh, yeah, this like really like sexy feminine energy, like very pink, beautiful, blah, blah, blah. So there was that. I also painted Lilith, but I didn't know it was Lilith at the time. I just had found a picture online that was like, oh, there's this cool nude lady with a snake wrapped around her. Like, how awesome of a symbol is that? So I'd painted these two paintings of these archetypes that I did not know that I was living through and working through until years later. And then I'm doing all of this self work, and like one day it just clicked, and I was like, hang on, I have these paintings in my house that are literally like the energy that I have been working through my whole life, but like very strongly for the last couple of years. It was just that funny, like, no, that was like in my subconscious and it needed to come out. Like there needed to be some sort of physical manifestation of it.
Oh my gosh, 100%. And this is why, okay, art also alchemizes stuff. Like you're getting it out into the physical. But during my Dark Night Awakening, I also picked up art. My art isn't as nice as yours. I'm really into like abstract and weird stuff. So like my paintings and the things that came out of that time are incredibly dark, like very scary. Like I look back at that art and I'm like, oh my God.
Who
Like
is she?
the demons were demoning over this art project over here. What the hell? But like I still have them because they're cool looking, but I was like, yeah, like there was so much I was going through a purification process really, and all of the gunk, all of the pain bodies, all of the distorted energy also was a couple year process where I felt like it was lifting out of me in this very like cathartic way and through art. So yeah, I totally relate to that. And sometimes we don't know what archetypes are working through us until you start studying archetypes. And then you're like, oh, Like the hero's journey is another
Oh,
one, right? That you can use the
mm,
hero's journey for just about everything. Everybody's going through some version of the hero's journey in their life, depending on where they are in life. It's like we're always acting out some archetype, but it's like, do you know which archetypes are acting out and like where you are in that archetype's like storyline in their process?
it's so interesting. And I feel like they can even repeat themselves as well. You might do a hero's journey at one point in your life and come to completion for that cycle, but then give it a few more years and something else is going to bubble up to the surface. And you're like, oh, and here we go. We're going into another one now.
Well, I look at it, well, this is, you can kind of look at this as just like the wheel of any kind of change. You could also look at it for whenever you update your identity or going through a hero's journey, because you have to like trust that this new thing that you want to do is okay. And then you take the leap and then you get guidance on the road. And then there are these challenges. And then you go into the cave. And it's like, this kind of happens every time we go through an identity upgrade. And I guess we go through really big ones sometimes. The process does repeat for sure.
Yeah, definitely. And you know how we were speaking about like bringing different archetypal energies into sessions with clients. You said, I don't know if you're talking about Hero's Journey or the 12, like Hercules and the 12 labors. Something you said triggered this memory. The other week, I literally brought in the archetypes in the thing that was going on with the client. He'd been a very naughty boy and he wanted to get punished. And I set him a series of challenges, which were the 12 labors, like Hercules was done. Instead of like going off and slaying the Hydra, it was like going off and finding this particular thing in the wilderness, then come back and show me evidence of it, or like go write something on your body, or send me money for this particular gift that I want. But there was 12 different tasks that he had to complete and provide different bits of like evidence on. But it was really fun. Went over a few days. He's also very into mythology as well. So that kind of helped. Like he'd written a poem that had referenced Hercules. I was like, all right, I know what we're doing. We're delving
I
into this.
love this. The one that's so creative and that's like intelligent doming. I don't know, like I like that.
Yeah.
I'm like I'm up for these tasks, Bella. Come on. I'm like I love a good scavenger hunt. Um
Right? It's fun.
it is fun. I used to have such a playful time with my subs too. Like I think that is the fun of being a dom, especially if you're doing kind of the mommy dom stuff. It's kind of like being able to create fun little experiences for your subs.
Yeah, for sure. And I think that's the biggest thing for me that I'm really enjoying. It's just like these, yeah, fun and playful experiences. Yes, it can be sexy and whatever, but like a lot of them, we really connect and you have those kind of like fun bits in between.
If someone wanted to work with you, how would they find you?
Such a wonderful question. So you can find me on the Blue site on OnlyFans. My handles for OnlyFans and also Instagram are the same. Goddess next door 99. Because classic ADD fashion made an email address and was like, cool, now I have to match everything to that. Not a lot of forward planning, but that is how to find me. If you're not on OnlyFans but still want to book a session, video session or something like that, just message me on Instagram and we can connect there. So if anyone feels like this has resonated with them and you think that you would get along well with me or want to book a session, definitely try and connect with me there. And anyone that's listening to this today, I'll do a 25% off your first session. So make sure you message me. Get that foot in the
Yes.
door. Come introduce yourself. I'd love to connect with you.
Oh, I love it. Thank you so much. I appreciate you being here.
Thank you for having me. This has been so much fun. This was
I
just
know.
fun. I loved it.
I could talk to you for literal hours. I might have to have you on again because we always have such great conversations when we get going. So,
For real. We'll rabbit hole about something else next time.
yeah, for
Delve deeper
sure.
into the archetypes.
Yes, absolutely.